The impalement. It was deep in the month of May, a brisk dark morning in 2015. The night before, I had cleaned my bedroom utterly spotless. I may have some form of obsessive compulsive disorder, as sometimes I feel as though whatever project I am working on must be finished and completed in perfect fashion. It was that urge that innocently filled my body that morning. So when I woke up and noticed a small piece of paper on the floor, damned if I was going to throw it into a clean trash can. I crawled out of bed, barely able to open my eyes. I grabbed my robe and threw it on. Being too tired to bother with tying the tassel, I bent over and grabbed the piece of paper and made my way to the door. I laughed to myself, realizing I was headed out of the back of the house and through the garage to put this small piece of paper in the garbage can out on the street. It was still dark out for the most part. It was about 5 a.m., and just a small amount of light was peering through the dew-covered morning trees. I reached the garage door, glancing over at the football-sized courts I had sitting in the backyard. My first impression as I opened the door was that it was too dark to jet across the garage floor, yet I could see the light at the bottom of the door at the other end of the garage. Keeping my eye on the light at the bottom of the door, I felt I could make the casual stroll to the other side of the garage. So I shut the door and didn't bother flicking on the light that was merely 2 inches from my hand. I don't believe I finished my first step when the adventure began. As I took that first step, one of the tassels from my robe became tangled around a shovel that was stretched out in front of me, which I had propped up along the garage wall the night before. The other tassel became twisted around my left knee, keeping that knee from bending. My other knee completely locked, having my right foot awkwardly tucked under the shovel. My right hand was in the pocket of my robe, desperately trying to escape, and my left hand was selfishly clinging onto the piece of scrap paper, which, looking back, became the main catalyst in this unnerving experience. My entire body was as stiff as a board, and there was nothing I can do but wait for the impact. I fell straight down like a heavy weight. It was immediate and quick. I hit the edge of a very sharp glass table stored on its side. Would you believe that I was the one who put the table there the day before, mumbling to myself that I should move it behind the larger rounded edge thick wood table, because someone could really get hurt. Synchronicity at its finest. The next thing I remember was my jaw hitting the ground. I have no or little memory of anything penetrating my body. Whatever took place between the time the left side of my chest impacted the sharp table edge with my jaw hitting the cement floor is unknown to me. It was like it all happened in a split second. It was almost like I skipped that part. Also understand that the edge of the table was just over 2 feet off the ground. My chest hit the edge of the table and my jaw hit the cement floor. How was that possible? I couldn't see a thing as it was still very dark, and that bothered me because something didn't feel right, and I could not see. I was in a very awkward position on all fours and slowly tried to move. That something that didn't feel right was really making me nervous. I felt something trying to push its way through my back. This sensation happened a few times before I realized something penetrated me. I recall being very confused and wondering what I should do. And again, something didn't feel right. It was not the feeling of pain so much, but more of an uncomfortable knowing. I did assume my body was going to hurt something fierce, and that it was just didn't register in my brain yet. It also occurred to me that there was going to be some blood. I wasn't sure how much until I started to push myself up. Immediately I thought, oh shit, this is going to hurt badly, and there is going to be a lot more than just some blood. I froze for maybe a good minute before I decided to throw myself off the table and run for a phone. I say a good minute, but honestly, this whole event, time was still. I started to push myself up and I could feel the table coming out of me, but it didn't hurt. There was no pain. I was expecting blood to start gushing everywhere, and I was preparing myself to stay focused, thinking I may lose consciousness. I finished pulling myself from the table and grabbed my chest with both hands. I stood up and reluctantly took one hand away from my chest and reached for the light switch, flicking it up. The room became extremely bright, and by the artificial light blinding me from the being able to search for my injuries, everything just froze, almost like I was in the middle of a meditation. I just stared. After what seemed like forever, I slowly moved my hands and took many glances at my t-shirt, expecting to see red, but saw nothing. I tried to pull my shirt down. I couldn't. I was more emotional trying to rip my t-shirt off than when the impalement took place. I finally was able to rip the t-shirt. I was expecting a major gash. There was nothing. I stood in shock, looking around the room. There was no sign of blood, which would have been the most obvious difference. I immediately noticed that the table that I felt leaving my body was now behind the large rounded wood table where I had intended on putting it. I did not move it, nor did my roommates, as I questioned them thoroughly the next day. The entire week ahead, my body was in much pain. Not my chest, but my back. Normally, I would blow that off as the L5 problem I had, or that pain that would shoot up my right leg. But that was now on the left. They both seemed to disappear completely after about a week. Now you understand what I meant when I stated that I felt death was an illusion, that it wasn't real, and that when I first came to the idea about the death lie in the 1980s, that I didn't mean it literally. But that seemed to be the case with this experience. Yet with these experiences and my analytical mind, I feel that my consciousness just shifted from one timeline consisting of specific parameters to another timeline with slightly different parameters. But to be quite honest, it could be something so much more. It could be something I just can't understand yet.